Hey everyone, so today we're going to be diving into something that um, affects, well, I mean, we all need it, right? Access to clean water. We
Yeah.
all know it's a challenge, but what if I told you that maybe the path to solving it has been right under our noses this whole time?
Mm.
We're doing a deep dive today into a recent article that argues that self-supply, things
Hmm.
like rainwater harvesting, personal wells, those sorts of things.
Right.
It's not just a backup plan. It's like the foundation for water security for millions of people.
Yeah, and what I find really interesting about this article is that it kind of like reframes the whole conversation.
Yeah.
We're so used to thinking about these big, large-scale water systems as being like the be all end all,
Yeah, yeah.
the goal,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
But what this research is saying is that no, self-supply is not just a stopgap, it's a legitimate way to have reliable water access.
It's like having a backup generator, but instead of just for when the power's out, it's your everyday electricity.
Exactly.
So the article, it kind of starts off with this pretty stark reminder that over 2 billion people still don't have access to safe water.
Yeah, a lot of people.
And then it dives into some real-world examples, starting with
Mhm.
Kenya.
Right.
So what's the water situation like in Kenya?
Well, so Kenya's a really interesting case, right? Because they have made some progress with things like community wells and water points, but those systems, they're often really unreliable.
Okay.
So what's happened is that people in these areas have become incredibly resourceful. They've learned to rely on a bunch of different sources,
Hmm.
with self-supply being kind of the one constant.
So it's almost like a diversified portfolio, like how you wouldn't want to put all your money in one stock.
Exactly. That's a great way to put it. And that's what they found. Even when people were connected to like a community system, they were still often using rainwater harvesting, to fill up personal tanks,
Yeah.
just as a way to make sure they'd have water, even if the main supply went out, which it often did.
Makes total sense, right? Because if you've ever had to deal with even a small water outage,
Yeah.
you know how vulnerable it makes you feel.
Oh, yeah.
So this is like taking control of your own water destiny in a way.
Exactly. And the crazy thing is, this isn't just a few people we're talking about. The census data from 2019 in Kenya showed that 56% of the rural population relies primarily on self-supply. That's over half.
Wow, that's a huge number. I mean, that really changes how you think about self-supply, right? It's not this niche thing. It's actually how a majority of people are getting their water.
Exactly. And it's not just Kenya. The article talks about similar trends in other parts of the world, too. Like one example they give is the island of Santiago in Cabo Verde.
Okay.
And they've got, water fountains. They've got trucks bringing water to community tanks. On paper, it sounds like a pretty good system.
Yeah, it sounds like it's set up to reach everybody.
Right. But the problem is these systems, they break down. There are limited resources, all sorts of logistical problems.
Mhm.
And so what happens, people end up having to buy expensive boiled water, or guess what? They fall back on self-supply.
So it's like it's almost ironic. They're bypassing like more localized solutions for these big systems, but then when those systems fail, people have to go back to the old ways.
It is ironic. And what's even crazier, the article was saying that there was actually a time when the government there discouraged rainwater harvesting.
Oh, wow.
They were really pushing these centralized systems. They saw it as a sign of progress.
It makes you wonder, like, how many good solutions are out there, local solutions, that are being ignored because they don't fit our idea of what progress looks like.
Yeah.
It's like, giving someone a fancy car when what they really need is a sturdy bike to get around.
Yeah, it's like, we think bigger is always better, right?
Right.
But maybe that's not always the case when it comes to something as basic as water.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're seeing this pattern, right, where self-supply is kind of like filling in the gaps. It's that safety net. But what's the bigger picture here? Like, why should we care about this?
Well, for one thing, self-supply puts the power in the hands of the people, right? You decide when you collect your water, how you collect it.
Yeah, you're not waiting on someone else.
Exactly. You're not at the mercy of some company or, hoping that the water truck shows up.
Right, right. It's about having control,
Yeah.
right, over something that's like essential to your life.
Exactly. And it's not even just control. The article also talks about how adaptable self-supply is, which is becoming more and more important as the climate changes.
Right, yeah. With climate change, we're seeing these unpredictable rainfall patterns.
Right.
So being able to adapt to that is going to be huge.
Exactly. And like think about rainwater harvesting, right? I mean, it's been around forever.
Yeah, yeah.
But you can always improve it. You can tweak it, adapt it to wherever you are. Same with things like, sand dams. Those are really cool. They catch water during the rainy season and then save it for when it's dry. Or fog nets, they catch moisture from the air in coastal areas.
I've heard about those, yeah.
It's amazing. And those are just a couple examples of self-supply methods that could be really, really resilient, even with climate change.
Yeah, it's like instead of forcing a one-size-fits-all solution,
Yeah.
we're like recognizing that local knowledge, that adaptability. That's powerful.
That's where the real innovation is. And you know what the article was saying is, instead of thinking of self-supply as this old, outdated thing, we should be investing in it. We should be figuring out what the best, safest methods are for different places.
Yeah. So instead of dismissing it, study it,
Exactly.
refine it, find ways to work it into the bigger picture of how we get people water.
Exactly. Imagine if we could take the best of both worlds, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Support communities that are already using self-supply, but then also make those bigger systems stronger wherever we can.
Right, because it's not like one or the other. Right. It's
Right.
about using everything we've got.
And, what works in one place might not work somewhere else. Sometimes the best solutions are the ones that have been around for a while,
Yeah.
Tried and true. The article doesn't just say we need to change our perspective, though. It says we need to do something. It says we need to invest,
Yeah.
more research, more training, support these communities that are trying to figure out their own water solutions.
It's about giving people the power to help themselves.
Absolutely. And, one of the things that really got me thinking was this idea of a leapfrogging.
Leapfrogging, what do you mean?
It's like sometimes we're in such a hurry to use the newest technology, the latest and greatest thing, that we end up skipping over solutions that are already working.
Oh, interesting.
Even if those solutions are, a little more, I don't know, old school.
So we're assuming new is always better, even if it means messing up something that was actually pretty good before.
That's exactly it. And the article talks about how this has happened with water,
Right.
We bring in these new water systems, but sometimes they actually hurt these traditional self-supply practices that were working perfectly fine.
So sometimes the rush to get to the new thing, we end up breaking something that was already working.
Right, exactly. And it's not that new technology is bad. It's just about, like you were saying, context, right? What works in one place might be totally wrong somewhere else.
Right.
And a lot of times those more traditional ways of doing things, they work because they've been adapted over time, They've been tested.
Right. So it sounds like as we're, moving forward, thinking about the future of water for everyone, we need to kind of find that balance. We need, that innovation, but we also need to respect those systems that are already working.
Yeah, and we need to start giving self-supply the credit it deserves. It's not just a Band-Aid, it's not a last resort. It can be a really viable way to make sure people have water.
Yeah. It's time to, change the story we tell about it.
Totally.
Self-supply, it's not the backup plan. It's like the blueprint.
I love that, the blueprint. And I think, the big takeaway for me from all this is that the way to get everyone water isn't to force our solutions on people.
Right.
It's to give them the tools and the knowledge they need to figure out what works for them.
Well, this has definitely given me a lot to think about. It's like sometimes the best solutions, they're not these big flashy things. They've been there all along.
I think that's right.
Yeah, well said. And to everyone listening, next time you turn on your tap, think about where that water comes from. All the different ways, big and small, that it gets to you.
That's a good point.
And maybe, just maybe, this has kind of given you a new appreciation for those unsung heroes of the water world,
Mm-hmm.
Rainwater harvesting, those personal wells, all those self-supply systems.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us.